So many of you know that prior to me moving to Michigan, I had a job working at Steinway & Sons in Seattle. My job was to rent pianos to people when they came to town, and occasionally this meant interacting with some pretty high-profile people. I had the really wonderful pleasure of working with people like Tony Bennett and Regina Spektor, but one of my favorites was this time I got to work with Bill Murray, and so this is a really fun kind of short story, and as a reminder, always read the whole email. By the way, please don't forget to like and subscribe this video. It's really helpful. Sharing it is also super helpful. I'm really trying to create a community, and the more that you do to let people know, the easier it is for me to keep doing this week after week. Okay, so there was just minding my own business at work one day, and I get a phone call from my Live Nation guy. Live Nation is one of the largest presenters of concerts. They mostly do popular and rock music throughout the country. And Live Nation's manager, I had gotten to work with a couple times because of some of the other clients that I mentioned earlier. And he called to let me know that he needed another piano for one of his clients, who ended up being Bill Murray. I didn't think much of it at the time because, quite frankly, this is part of my job. I was doing it all the time. And him calling saying he needed a piano for somebody famous was normal for him. The interesting part about it, though, was that he mentioned that he was on tour with a German cellist named Jan Vogler, and they also had a violinist and a pianist working with them to do just some light underscoring. The pianist happened to be a Steinway artist, which is why they were calling me to get them a piano. Of course, I handled it, arranged them a nice Steinway D to get them to the hall. I said goodbye, and it was a pretty normal interaction between me and him. To be honest, I kind of forgot about the whole thing at the time because I had over 100 clients at that time, and most of them were local, and I really wanted to focus on just the local people because the local people were what kept me employed. Fast forward a few months, and I get an email from the Live Nation guy with a bunch of other people CC'd. He just wanted to help get everything coordinated between me and McCall Hall, which is the hall where Seattle Opera performs. I hadn't actually worked with that venue before, and they didn't usually rent pianos from me, so it was an interesting collaboration, but the artist insisted on getting a piano from us, so that's what I did. And at the bottom of the email, there was this really just like kind of small, like one sentence, by the way, do you know of a page turner that's in town that could turn pages for our pianist? And so this is the reason why you should always read the whole email. When there's a lot of information mentioned, you never know, even if something doesn't apply to you, places that you can help out that could ultimately lead to other interesting things that happen in your career. So I responded to the question and just wrote to all of his questions regarding me and just wrote, P.S. I do have a master's degree in composition, and if you want, I can be your page turner. Because he already trusted me because of all the other work that I'd done for him, he was like, well, I was probably going to ask you to be on site anyways, so no reason why that doesn't make sense for you to do this. So I get the details, and I was instructed just to show up about 2 hours before the show so I could go everything with the pianist. Now, if you've ever been asked to be a page turner, you probably know a couple things. One, it kind of sucks, because you don't really provide anything for the show. You're just kind of there to not exist, right? Two, you really could mess the show up, like if you accidentally grab 2 pages, or if you grab it and your hand sticks to it and then the whole thing messes up. And I've seen some really funny examples where page turners get like slapped by the pianist because they got lost. Three, you usually don't get paid anything. I show up and meet the pianist who's the wonderful Vanessa Perez. And she points out that the music really isn't that hard, and so that I should just relax and it'll be super fun and easy. And don't even get me started on clients who have asked me to page turn specifically Emerald City Music, As Much As I Love You, and I was asked to page turn for the Ravel Piano Trio for Michael Mizrahi. that is like one of the hardest pieces to turn pages for, because I couldn't hear the cellist. The pianist was doing all these weird things, and as wonderful of a pianist Michael is, I got lost, and I know that he was frustrated at me, so I'm sorry about this, Michael. So at this point, we exit the stage after our short little rehearsal, and we go to the green room, where there's this like massive spread of gourmet specialty sausages, like every possible thing, just like the fanciest thing I've ever seen. Of like the fanciest way that you could ever make a sausage. Like apparently this is what famous people's green rooms look like. I still hadn't met anyone but the pianist yet. And so I just kind of sat there waiting for the show to start. At that point, the Live Nation guy comes up to me and he says, "Thank you for jumping in, for being our page turner, and also everything else that you did to coordinate this. And I'm so glad that I have you as my primary contact." And so he then pulls me aside and said, "By the way, I'm assuming Steinway's not paying you to be here. What do page turners generally get paid?" So in that moment, I had no idea what to say, because I knew in my head, I'm thinking we usually don't. But I also know that if he's asking, he probably intends to pay me something. And so I say, I didn't want to say something too high because he might ask the pianist. And I didn't want to say free because, hey, I'm a musician, getting paid something when I'm sure the artists were getting paid a ton made sense. So instead, I calmly said, it really just depends on the gig and who it is. And he responds to me and says, "How about $400? So I hold on to my calm expression because I did not want to let on that he just offered me a lot of money. Even though I'm thinking to myself, holy cow, this is like 2.5 days of my salary for a gig I would have probably done for free. Which does remind me, if you are paying your pianist a lot of money and they need a page turner, like pay them like $50 to $100. Like $400 is a little ridiculous, but like $50 to $100 for like an hour's worth of work, I know it doesn't seem like a lot of money, but that is unpaid labor. That really, I think you'll get a better situation. Regardless, the show is about to start, so we got ready for that, and as I enter the stage, I get a glimpse of Bill Murray, who I can tell has this like little pre-show ritual of some sorts, and I didn't want to get in the way to introduce myself, so I enter the stage and the show begins. Regardless, as the show is about to start, we start getting ready, and we start walking towards the stage. I do get a glimpse of Bill Murray at this point, and I can tell he's got this like pre-show mojo, like get in the zone type of pre-show ritual. So I didn't want to bother him to introduce myself, but I was getting really excited. And so as we enter the stage and the show begins, I just sit there, do my thing as a page turner. That's what you do as a page turner. The show mostly consisted of Bill Murray doing these like dramatic readings of poetry and various novels and telling jokes, and it just really reminded me of just every Bill Murray thing that I could think of. And about 70% of the way through the show, this upbeat number starts to happen, and Bill Murray comes up to the pianist, pushes me aside, and starts to mess with the pianist, like messing with her and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. Now, I wasn't expecting this to happen. Like, they didn't warn me about it. And so I kind of had two choices. I could either freak out or I could just run with it. I must say, this is like the most pro move that I've ever made. I just really played it and got back in my chair, kind of pushed him back a little bit, like not like really, but kinda. And this is the moment where I think he just decided, okay, if you're gonna play along, we're gonna lay one into you. And so I don't remember exactly what he said, but if I remember correctly, he decides to start telling these jokes at my expense for a few minutes. and that was kind of it. It was really weird. It was kind of funny, but like I totally wasn't expecting any of it. But the audience seemed to really really be eating it up, and I'm just like, okay, I'm here. Normally I would not be into this type of thing, but in this situation I was like, this is a really funny thing that's happening to me right now, and I'm just gonna go with it. So as the show is about to end, he goes backstage and grabs a bouquet of roses, and he starts throwing them out into the audience, just like, I guess like in an opposite. Normally you get roses thrown at you, and so he's like, no, I'm gonna throw a bouquet of roses at the audience. And then he takes the last one and he tears it in half, and he gives the stem side to the cellist, and then he holds the other side, and he puts it over his head and does this weird things, and then he comes up to me and he hands me the rose in an almost like proposal kind of way, and makes this funny comment, and then the show was over. At this point, I'm like, I don't know what to say. I'm like, okay, so that just happened. This was not what I was expecting. He actually then comes up to me, shakes my hand, introduces himself, and says, hi, I'm Bill. I hope, thank you for doing this. You were a great sport. So happy that you were here. He invites me to join them in the green room for a drink, and I get to hang out with them. Now, sadly, I don't have any pictures of this because I was playing it super professional and super cool, and trying to just kind of keep my cool so that he would keep letting me hang out with them. But I did keep the rose, and I did use it as cover art for a piece of mine a few months later. But here's what I can tell you. They did tell me that if it was possible, they would love to have me go on tour with them and do this again, because I guess I was like one of the best page turners they'd had, mostly just because of how much I played along. I just like went for it. And I guess that's not how it always goes. I guess they always roast them, but in my situation, I really played along. So apparently I'm funny. I don't think I'm that funny. Unfortunately they couldn't do that, because then I wouldn't get that like visibly shocked look that I had on my face as it was happening. And then the second thing is that Bill Murray is low-key like a wine mom, like drinking his white wine with ice cubes, and is a little kind of eccentric, and which is not surprising, but was definitely kind of delightful to hang out with. And finally, here's my biggest number one tip: always read the whole email, because you never know when it's gonna get you paid like $400 in an evening that I will never forget. Anyways, if you like this story, let me know in the comments below, and as always, please be creative.